Hi, I'm Susanna Kalcic, and you're listening to Life in Practice podcast. I'm curious about the big questions in life and how we can experience more meaning and fulfillment every day. Join me as my guests share their challenges, successes, and what it means to put our purpose, our values, and our lives in practice. Hello and welcome to Life in Practice podcast. This is your host Susanna, and today my guest is Vicky Alhadeff. Vicky is an animal behaviorist, a writer and a vegan. Welcome, Vicky.
Thank you very much.
So Vicky and I both connected over actually having a stutter. And we met at a Toastmasters clubs, and so we had a lot to share about our struggle and experience of stuttering, and also wanting to work on our speech and become better speakers. Vicky, so what was unusual about you was your stutter actually started, was it when you were 19?
That's right. It was my second year university.
Mm-hmm.
I'd moved in to live with my mother because she'd moved to Cape Town University. I'd left Zimbabwe to go to a university quite far from Zimbabwe on purpose. But her husband died, my stepfather died, and she moved to Cape Town. And it was a very tough year. We had a very challenging relationship and clashed all the time. And I developed a stammer. Which was quite mortifying because all of a sudden I couldn't speak fluently, and for the rest of my university career, as I became aware that I could stammer, I began to speak less and less, or instead I'd speak as fast as I possibly could to avoid inflicting my stammer on other people, which meant that because I was speaking faster, I stammered even more and blocked even more, and then people didn't have a clue what I was trying to say, and so basically stopped speaking for about 3 years.
Wow. And did that do you think that your stuttering happened because of the relationship that you had with your mom?
Yes, completely. I mean, the actual situation was I'd been on a trip, and one of the guys on the trip came to visit me. And I knew she was listening with her ear to the wall. And I was so tense. I wasn't even interested in the guy, but I was still very tense. And because I knew she was there, I stammered. And I was shocked to hear myself stammer because I'd never stammered so badly before. And then afterwards she said, what were you talking like that for? As if it was deliberate. And then a few days later, there was another quite tense situation, and I stammered. And then I just became aware that I could. And because I started focusing on it, I naturally started to stammer, and then it became a habit.
Yeah, that I imagine that must have been quite scary, because especially at that age, to have something like that happen.
Completely, especially I was shy at the best of times. So to have a stammer on top of being shy just was made speaking and having relationships kind of virtually impossible.
But did you seek out some therapy or anything to help you, or did you feel very ashamed of it?
Initially, for quite a few years, I was just very ashamed of it and basically became mute. And then only a few years, so when I was about 22, so a few years later, I was working at a university in Johannesburg, and there was a speech clinic at the university, and I started to go for speech therapy then, and I learned a technique which was very helpful.
What was the technique?
It's just called continuous phonation, where you slow your speech right down and then start building it up to kind of a good speed, but continuous phonation meant that I wasn't having a break between any words, and when you don't have a break, then there's no time, there's no possibility to stammer.
Oh wow!
And it worked, but then I moved to London for 18 months, and I forgot to practice.
And what do you think about techniques like that? Because I find that maybe they're kind of almost like a band-aid to cover the symptoms, because realistically, are you really going to speak like that?
Yes, yes. I mean, the idea was to teach a new habit of speaking. So, but it did require a lot of practice, and I think I agree that it was more of a band-aid, because unless I continued to practice, it just fell away, which is what happened. And then it was only many years later, when I'd moved to London again, or moved to the UK again, that I found the city lit.
And tell me a bit about like the psychological toll that it took when you were like, especially at university and growing up, trying to form friendships and relationships. How did that affect you? Did you have like anxiety or depression or anything like that?
With the stammer, yes, huge. At university, when I began to stammer, I did in my second year especially. I went into depression. My third year, I moved into a house with friends, but I think I spent a couple of months not being able to go to lectures. I became very, very depressed, and also because I at that point I was 19. I couldn't see a way out. I didn't really know about psychotherapy, I didn't. I mean, I was studying psychology, so I didn't know about psychotherapy. But I wasn't applying. I didn't think to apply it to myself or to seek it out myself.
And why did you feel that almost like that your situation seemed a bit hopeless?
Yeah. And I was stuck. And sometimes I think, if I'm too depressed, then I don't seek help. But if I'm just getting out of it, that's when I start researching courses and ways to help me. So yeah.
How do you get from that point when you're like really depressed and you just can't do anything, to get that kind of like, oh well, maybe there is some hope, maybe if I try this? Because I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah, I think I do have to sink to the bottom, and obviously not the total bottom, but then I think there's an element that's an optimistic in me, and I'm very curious, and I do love courses. I mean, friends laugh at me at the amount of courses that I do, but I've learned, and I mean, I'll always study for the rest of my life, because there's so much to learn, and I think it's that bit of optimism in me that drives me to seek out something that can help me, and even if it's and also reading. I love reading, and I learned one of the trips I'd been on in that second year was to go to Botswana to study bird density and vegetation growth, and be in this beautiful wildlife reserve with all the amazing animals that are in Botswana, all in Africa, and that made me want to study. Animals, and want to study ethology, the study of animal behavior. Initially, then it was wildlife, but later on I went to study companion animals, who are every bit as fascinating as wildlife.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially because we've got a much closer relationship to them as well.
Exactly. And they need, they need help because they're living with us, and we have such different needs. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I just want to go back a bit, because I think one of the reasons why I think that you're such a great guest to have is that, you're during the course of your life, you face so many challenges, and I feel like your resilience and your compassion is just shining through. And and I'd love to know a bit more about what that road has been like for you. Because I know what you mentioned before, I think in your early life, some of the major struggles was that the challenging relationship you had with your mum, and then which you think triggered then having a stutter.
Yeah,
And did the relationship with your mum also have an impact on your self-esteem?
it did completely. Yeah, but and ironically, our relationship, it helped me. I think it helped me to become more compassionate because growing up in Zimbabwe, it was a racist country, and our family had, we had a gardener, and people who worked for us, and I I hated how they were treated, and so I just knew it was wrong from 5, and I'd go out of my way just to befriend everybody, and just have a nice relationship, and so I think because I was treated in a similar way, and always felt wrong and in trouble, I could relate to other people who were treated similarly, and I formed like an internal connection with them. But I just knew it was wrong to treat, and I thought, especially because they were adults, it just seemed even worse to treat them so badly, and that helped me become like an anti-apartheid campaigner when I went to university. That was my motivation to go to university, to protest against apartheid.
Amazing.
And so in a way, I did a family talk where actually I once my mother had passed on, I was able to thank her because through my stammer, I went to speech therapy. Without speech therapy, I wouldn't have discovered King Speakers and become a better public speaker, because otherwise I'd probably have been just this very shy person who was just shy and never got out of her comfort zone. But because I really wanted to speak fluently, and then speak up for people, and then speak up for animals, that's why I went on the therapy courses, and then a friend of mine met Tony, who led me to King Speakers, and I think since King Speakers, I've never had as much confidence as ever before, and that's because, as you say, at every meeting, just speak up, just take on a role, do something, even if it's just impromptu speaking, and that's really helped me grow, and just speak up as much as I can.
That's so true. And just what you're saying about, like, had you not had a stutter, you probably wouldn't have done all that work. Because I find like, even like when I speak to people who are fluent, I think they really take for granted the value that their voice has. And I think when something is, well, I wouldn't say like completely taken away from you, but when it's a struggle, it gives you even more drive to want to overcome it.
Absolutely. And I started to love the English language. I remember, especially after the City Lit course, I just started to enjoy each word, and I just thought English is the most beautiful language. And it really made me start to love language.
Yeah. And I just want to ask again, just in regards to your mum and to self-esteem, because I think self-esteem is just so key when we're growing up.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, developing self-esteem is one of the most important things that we have to do, because it affects how we treat ourselves, how we are in relationships with others, whether we take on job opportunities. It has such a big impact.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it was growing up, I did feel, because I was often accused of being a monster. I was killing my mother. She sacrificed her life for me or for us, and I was just ungrateful and a monster a lot of the time, and I took that on, and I did feel unworthy and just useless, and I think, which is why I struggled to speak up, and then probably naturally fell into a stammer. And the self-esteem has taken decades to overcome, but because she actually suggested speech and drama, which I thought, never in a million years, why would I ever want to speak up? And and then when the time was right, I did. But yeah, so self-esteem, it did affect me. And I remember my first boss, Pancho, at Wits University, he said I was like a frightened butterfly. But he was fantastic in just helping me. And yeah, it affected me with relationships. I was just pathetically shy.
Mm. But I think what comes across to me from what you're saying is you did, though, have confidence in your voice to stand up for other people. Because if we're protesting against
Yes.
apartheid, and so what gave you the courage and the drive there to stand up for others?
I think it was just an internal sense of justice. Probably we all born with it, and then maybe get squashed out in different ways. But I think it was one thing I retained. And also because my sister is 7 years older than me. And so when I was 10, she was participating in protests. And I couldn't. And because she was my inspiration to go from the age of 10. And I was very proud of her that she was campaigning against all the injustices happening in South Africa. And so that was... So I had a good role model when I was a child, but even though I was aware of it from young, but that was an added impetus to carry on. So that was and I also had a cousin who was arrested, and I was very proud for anti-apartheid activities, and I'm very proud of her as well. So I think any injustice, and I think because we suffered injustice, you can't compare, life at home to the real injustices of the blacks of South Africa and Zimbabwe. But just more in the sense of just not feeling understood, and that I really wanted to help that.
Mm. And I think, do you think that actually helped your self-esteem as well? Because I think, how can I put it? Like, when you do good for others, when you support others, you're adding value, and therefore it makes you feel more worthy because you're actually contributing something positive to the world.
Yeah, and I always feel as if I'm in the right place, doing the right thing when I'm helping. Yeah, with people. Yeah, wherever I'm helping, it always feels this is where I'm meant to be. And I think with my life's purpose is to always help, and that's where I feel it's right, and I think so that would help my self-esteem, because you're with other like-minded people, and you're all doing something together. I think I enjoy. I do stuff on my own, like speaking in schools or photographic exhibitions, but at the same time, I also enjoy just having working with like-minded friends and people to the same goal. Yeah, so that definitely would help self-esteem.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And so, you've kind of been going through all that, and then you moved to South Africa. And what I find then the next part of the story, it's just you've been doing all this really good stuff, and then you face a very huge injustice yourself.
Yeah, the incidence of rape in South Africa is very high. I think it's 1 in 4, and in 1990, it was a week before Mandela was due to be released. I was raped by 2 people, and I wasn't sure if I would survive because one of them threatened to kill me, and I just thought, this is such bad timing. South Africa's about to be free, and I'm about to be killed. So it was obviously the most terrifying experience of my life.
Can you talk us through it? How did it how were you even put in that situation where you were facing that threat?
I lived in a flat which is like parallel to a very busy, active, very nice street in Johannesburg. And I just had a craving for a Greek salad one night, and I went. So it was about 10 o'clock, and I was coming back to my flat, and my cat was on the outside ledge, and I went to cuddle him, and I was just aware of this man approaching me purposefully, and I just thought, oh no, he wants my bag, and so I just gave it to him. I wasn't going to argue about it, but then he grabbed my arm, saying, no, he wants more. He wants me, and he showed me a knife, and he said, if you scream, I'll kill you. But I mean, I wasn't capable of screaming anyway. I think I just shut down. And he marched me across the road to the garage underneath a block of flats. And then he raped me. And then there's another, and then I heard footsteps. And he turned towards him and he did a thumbs up sign. And I thought, oh my gosh. And anyway, so after both of them, they left. Thank goodness. He asked me my name, and I made up some name. He asked me where I lived. I made up some faraway suburb. And I closed my eyes because I didn't want to have their faces etched into my brain. So later on, I couldn't identify them, for the police anyway. But then I had a good friend, and he was always in clubs on this busy street, Rocky Street. And I went to find him, like 1 a.m, and he took me straight to his friend, she was a counselor. And she was amazing because she said, you can 100% recover from rape. And I believed her. And she gave me a shot of whiskey. I generally don't drink, but I gulped it down. And she said, and she just gave me strategies, what I can do, go to the police, go to the hospital. And she was just there as a strong support, especially knowing, you can recover from this. And that's what happened. And I went to the hospital. I had to be treated. Well, I had to be tested for every possible STD disease, including HIV. And that was quite dramatic. The psychiatrist in the hospital said, "Wouldn't you rather be dead?"
What?
I thought, and I thought then, she must be trying reverse psychology to see if she's got a suicide case on her hands. But I thought that was a bit bizarre. But anyway, but I knew I wouldn't. I wouldn't rather be dead. And so after that, for the next 6 months, I had to have tests for HIV, and the third time I had to have it, I landed up in hospital. I think I just had like a post-traumatic stress response, and I developed asthma for the first time and double pneumonia. So I nearly died from that. So I was in hospital for a week. And the hospital I was vegetarian then, not yet vegan, and they didn't really have a clue. So I'd get like half a potato for a meal, and my friends were amazing, and would bring me food every day and visit me every day, especially my one friend Thelma, and so that was another long journey to recovery.
I can imagine just like the complete stress and the shock and the fear. And I imagine, did you feel anger as well? And there must have been so many different things. I mean, it just sounds so petrifying.
It was huge. It was mainly fear. I lived alone, and I didn't know how will I ever live alone again, because I just thought I can't. So, but my friend Bobby, he moved in with me for a week. And I remember one time he just went out to see some friends, and I panicked. I said, and he had to come back. I just couldn't cope. But then it did ease up, but I did change my life. I was self-employed photographer, like day and night, and going wherever I was needed. As a press and magazine photographer, and I stopped going out at night, doing photography jobs. And my friend and Thelma, she found me another flat, which is in this beautiful location. I mean, just up the road, but it felt and looked very safe and beautiful, like land and swimming pool, and that really helped. So changing location and changing and I did I started to go to a choir that was amazing and helping me sing beautiful music. But I did ask for a lift to the choir. So I did lose a lot of my confidence in negotiating the city where it had happened. So I did change my life. But I carried on doing what I thought I felt safe with. And but did do things to strategies to help me do things, but where I felt safe, then I'd ask for help.
Oh, that's so important, and it's so amazing that you had that help and support there.
Yeah, people were fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But aside from the kind of practical day-to-day stuff, what about how are you coping emotionally and psychologically?
I was seeing a fantastic therapist. So I was seeing him, and as well as seeing Joan, the counselor. So both of them really helped me emotionally, just helped how to deal with it and come to terms with it. And I also started Tai Chi, which is like a beautiful moving meditation, and that helped me also get some stillness and some peace. So singing, which is very, very, I find very therapeutic. Singing with a group of people with beautiful music, and Tai Chi and therapy. I think that those three together help me just to come to terms with it and to live again.
Yeah, like you're really proactive about it. I get the sense you were really determined to overcome this and
yes
and get your life back.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure of the timeline, but I didn't want to be stuck, and didn't want to be stuck with it, and to just kind of stop my life because of it. Yeah,
because I can imagine like how would you ever feel that you can trust somebody, like especially people that you don't know? How can you trust a man again?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I found that it was. I mean, so it's because they were strangers, and because I think
it's different.
It was different to somebody you know. I mean, I know that it's rife, in domestic violence as well, But it's. I suppose I think that probably is that optimistic part of me, but at the same time, I don't take safety for granted. I don't just I don't just do things because I don't care. So I don't just put myself into situations where I would feel unsafe. So I might be a bit more cautious than most people, maybe, but I don't take safety for granted. But I still live a full life.
Oh yeah, you do, yeah. I can definitely see you doing that. And I think one of the things I remember in a previous conversation that I think helped you in this recovery, I don't know whether would you think of it as a spiritual thing, but you had a healing dream.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
The night after it happened, I had this amazing dream. I mean, that same night, because I couldn't go to sleep. When I got back to the flat, I couldn't go to sleep. I put on Faulty Towers, best therapy, and then I had a dream, and I was walking in this beautiful village, and it was filled with snow, and and the streets were full of snow, and there's snow on the roofs, and I could smell and feel and taste this whiteness and this purity and the beauty of the snow, and I knew when I was dreaming that I needed to hold on to this dream and remember it, and I have because when I'd gone to sleep, I had this sense of just blackness. Everything just seemed really black, but this dream was just the antithesis, and it was beautiful, and it was very tangible. When snow is so clean and pure, and it's fresh, and it was and that was a beautiful healing dream. Yeah, and that helped me because I retained that, and I still retain that 30 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you believe in some kind of higher power or like a spirituality? Do you think it was just kind of a psychological experience that kind of helped you, like your mind's way or your subconscious way of helping you deal with what's happened, kind of like a coping mechanism?
I think I believe in both. I mean, I do believe our minds are amazing. Yeah, because after my best friend died, I had another healing dream. So I do believe, but I do believe that there's a power greater than us. I don't know, the universe. I do believe there's more than us, and so I believe in a spiritual life, and that's amazing. And I do find that it's that's quite fascinating and powerful. And I do, so with meditation, I always find incredibly helpful. And connecting with nature, I find always amazingly healing and hopeful. Always, the sea, swimming in the sea for hours, and walking by the sea in the mountains, I find nature very healing. Yeah. So I think I believe, and so I mean, what's working? I believe in both. I think it's just fascinating how dreams do manifest.
Yeah, I think it's still something that we still don't know very much about. It's still quite a mystery.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, because when you have something so traumatic happen to you, and how we form perceptions and meanings about what happened, and did you ever felt that what happened to you wasn't fair, or life wasn't fair, or why me? Did you ever go down that road?
No, I've never. No, I didn't. I'm not sure.
That's really interesting. Because I mean, I don't know if that happened to me, I'd be like, oh no, why this happened to me? And I'm sure it's very easy to go down and feel like a victim of circumstance, and you just really feel that injustice.
I probably thought I thought I deserved it. I don't
Really?
know. I mean, maybe my part of my self-esteem was so low that I didn't even question that these bad things happen. I'm not sure.
Wow.
But I didn't think why. I didn't. Yeah, I don't think.
Or is it because, as you said, it was something so common in South Africa?
Yeah, very common. Very common. Yeah, I think you're lucky if it doesn't happen to you.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that you didn't go down that kind of victim mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of my life, because I think I lived a lot of my life quite low, and just probably not realizing how that I was just quite low from childhood because of relationships and boarding school, and so I think I was probably in a low mentality and always wanting. I did have, I think I had a sense of being misunderstood, and so maybe I was in that state already. So maybe it wasn't new, if you know what if that makes sense.
I think so. I think, are you trying to say that kind of you felt kind of so already, as in your words, like low and maybe low self-worth, that it's like, well, yeah, like of course, like stuff like this happens. Like why would something better happen for me? Is that why?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. Yes.
Wow.
Just more that. Yeah. So it's taken a long time and a lot of learning and reading of fantastic spiritual healers and spiritual healers to kind of learn to overcome that.
Wow. That's really, really, really powerful. Really makes you think. But at the same time, you still had this strength and this hope inside you that things can get better, and that you do deserve to heal from this.
Yes. maybe that's the rebellious part of me, because I've always been a rebel. And that's why I clashed so much with my mother, because I was always a rebel. At boarding school, I clashed. I was in trouble all the time, nearly expelled. And so automatically I rebel against police and because they were thugs in South Africa and Zimbabwe. So it was hard. So that's been So I think I've always had a fighting spirit, as well as probably like a mixture of both. Low bit of fighting spirit. For injustice, and
Well, the fighting spirit has served you well, that's for sure. So as you were coming to terms with what happened with the attack, and even though you were going to therapy, you were getting support, but your body was kind of communicating to you and like trying to process this trauma.
Yeah, and a few years later, well, I did, because of what had happened in South Africa, I did start looking to leave South Africa, and I eventually moved to the UK, and I moved to Devon, and then to London. And in London, I worked. I was lucky, and I found work as a photographer. And I worked like crazy for 10 years because I was freelance, self-employed. You couldn't really say no to a job, otherwise I might go to the next person and they never ring you again. So I worked like crazy, and I was singing choirs. And then there was a time period, quite a narrow time period, where 3 of my cats died very close together, and two. And one person a friend who had become estranged from, she took her own life, and Pancho, my friend from the professor of architecture, his wife, she took her own life, and so there were like 5 major deaths, and plus working like crazy, and then my body just said, it's enough. And I just crashed, and I was struggling to take on photography jobs, and eventually I was offered a job, and I said, I can't do it. I can't move. And then I just crashed with ME, chronic fatigue, for 3 years. And again, I'm also very. I far prefer to do kind of natural methods of healing than drugs, and I was in a lot of pain, so maybe it was a bit of fibromyalgia or. I mean, it was never completely classified. Basically, it was ruling out everything else, and it kind of left with ME, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and I was offered lots of pain-killing drugs, which I didn't want, because I wanted to know what was happening in my body, and but eventually, and after searching online for courses, and it was very, very doom and gloom online. Most of the stuff you find, and people are just all these different symptoms, which I didn't really want to keep reading about or hear about more. But eventually this little oasis of a course came up. It was an energy excellence course in Wales. And and the guy who set it up, he'd had ME for 10 years, and he learned techniques to recover, and he'd set up this course. And it was at this beautiful place, the Mumbles. And so I booked to go in it like in July. There used to be summer, potentially hot. And it was the best thing I did because I learned so many techniques on this course, which was diaphragmatic. Some of them were like proper breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, visualization, meditation techniques, NLP, tapping, EFT, and plus their own unique little technique on this course. And through practicing this, the course was just 3 days. But the idea is to give you the tools to practice for as long as you need them. And I practiced intensely for about 2 or 3 months. But even on the course, I started to feel better and to get little glimpses of more energy. And that's how I recovered from ME, chronic fatigue.
Wow.
Yeah, because I got it when I was 50, and I thought, this can't be my life. My life can't be over now. Because I literally, I was flat on the bed. I couldn't move. I'd have to, I couldn't do anything. I stopped my work. And so it was terrified. So that was scary because I didn't want to be flat on my back,
No,
the
of
rest of my
course
life.
not. Yeah.
So this course was like a wonderful oasis, and it was fantastic. Yeah. So I learned, but it took a lot of work, and I think you only, I suppose, as with everything, I guess, you only get what you put in, and
Totally.
and so one obviously wanted to get my life back, or a different life back. Yeah, and again, also I was also changed career, and that started to change career because that was another story.
Yeah, no, I just want to find just a bit more about the chronic fatigue. 'Cause I think quite a lot of people suffer from that as well. And it seems to be quite a common thing because from even what you're saying is like, I think a lot of people experience overwhelm. They have to do this, that, and there's just so much pressure, so much stuff going on. And your body just is like, oh, I need to stop. I need
Yeah.
to rest. I need... So with the techniques and everything that you were doing, was it just basically helping your body to like deeply relax and recharge? And was it also about reducing anxiety as well?
100%. Because I think they found a lot of people with ME are tend to be. I mean, I've never thought I was a perfectionist, but or people who just push themselves too hard. And so a lot of people who get ME are people who just push themselves too hard and never say no. And that's probably lack of self-esteem, because you think you need to do this better and better and better, harder and harder, and then your body does have limits, and so that, I think that's one of the characteristics of people with ME, just too hard on themselves and too pushing, and another thing was that. And I also learned that and not being able to say no.
Yeah.
Not being able to say no is a big thing, and maybe also wanting to please people. Again, probably again related to self-esteem. So the minute we can learn to kind of value oneself, and not in a selfish way, but just in a way that looking after yourself is, if you're looking after yourself, then you can look after others better.
Yeah, totally.
And it's about that differentiation that we do matter. We, like as a person, looking after oneself matters. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's I think in this kind of self-love and self-care conversation is like where what's the fine line between self-love and selfishness?
Yeah.
And I came across a really good quote online. I think it was, I hope I can get it right. It's selfishness is when you put your wants before someone else's needs. And like self-love is when you put your needs before someone else's wants.
Yeah, that's a great definition.
But obviously when it's a situation when it's you have needs and the other person have needs, well, I guess it's the time to find some kind of compromise.
Yeah. And I think Dr. Gabo Mate says that, he talks about recently about chronic fatigue being when the body says no. And it's also, so refer to the anxiety part. And so what the technique was to stop the body being in a fight or flight situation all the time. Basically like a dysfunctional, like an overacting amygdala. And that was causing the pain because when we're in fight or flight all the time, the body shuts down, and that's what happens, and also it becoming a self-perpetuating cycle. Because I was in pain, because I felt exhausted, I panicked. Is this my life? Is this what's going to happen? So I'd have these negative thoughts, negative feelings, plus pain, and the cycle wouldn't break. So the course helped to break that pattern and to start inducing deep feelings of relaxation. And so meditation is more than relaxation. It's more the stillness is much deeper. So meditation helps you break that fight or flight 24 hours, which kind of kills you. Because we're not meant to be in fight or flight all the time. I mean, it's meant to be like a quick response to danger, but and then you recover. So the techniques help to break that pattern, of being in a constant fight or flight. And that's why it was so effective. But that's why it takes practice, because I had to interrupt myself every time I had a panic, a thought, or a feeling, or something that, oh my God, I would interrupt that.
So what, you just like change your thought? Like if you're having a thought, you're like, no, I need to have a different thought? Is that how it works?
It's with the whole technique, which, like a whole 20-second program.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and do that as often as it was needed. So that's why it was an intense work. But
yeah, I guess if you can heal yourself in that way, it's much better than putting drugs inside your body and actually trying to heal the part of your body that needs to be healed.
Exactly.
Rather than just using a painkiller to numb pain, because when your body's in pain, it's communicating you like, hey, something's wrong, pay attention to me.
Exactly. And in that case, the painkiller would just be a Band-Aid. It wouldn't address anything.
Was it just like, what kind of pain was it? Was it just like all over kind of?
It was mainly my legs and my feet were in constant pain. That was the main pain. And then just utter, like if I'd visited friends, I'd have to lie down. I couldn't even sit up.
Wow.
It's just, I had to sit down or lie down, and not, standing was.
And then, so how long did that healing process take? So when you started on the course?
Within the first 2-3, after, when I started on the course, like, I started on the third day, they said they can see a difference in me. I look more alive. And then when I went home and practiced intensely, I think after about 2-3 months, I was 80% recovered.
Wow. And
then I carried on, and I think I still have a tendency to push, and then I stop. And then, but I do meditation more on a. I'd like to do it more regularly than I do, but I know whenever I do, it's has a profound effect.
Yeah, it is powerful.
Yeah.
Wow, and I think that experience, as you said, it kind of inspired you to change direction in terms of your career.
Yes.
Because before you were like constantly working, being a photographer, but then it kind of allowed this opening and space for you to, I guess, pursue. Would you call it your true passion?
Yeah. I mean, I love photography. I will always love photography because it also enabled me to photograph the injustice, like I did human rights photography and photography in abattoirs and battery sheds. So I had exhibitions to expose what was going on. So I've used photography politically and for my campaigns. But actually, ironically, I was sent on a photography job, and through that job, I found a horse who needed rescue. He was standing knee deep in muck in this industrial center. And with the editor, we helped to rescue him and take him to a sanctuary. And when I was visiting at the sanctuary, she had a magazine with a little tiny advert, "Do you want to become an animal behaviorist?" And that was my epiphany to, yes, this is how I can... Because from reading Jane Goodall when I was 18, I wanted to work with animals, but I didn't know how. I mean, now there's so many courses, animal behavior courses, you can do PhDs, but then, then there was nothing. Well, nothing that I knew of. Anyway, and so I started to study companion animal behavior.
And now you work as an animal behaviorist.
Yes.
And so what does that entail? Because I think, because you always kind of talk about it in the sense, because I'm sure most people hire you because they want to train their animals to behave that they want them to. Yeah, exactly. But what you actually do is, train the humans.
Yeah.
Almost. Is that right?
Yes, totally. Yes. It's about, and I'm still learning, just ways to do it, to convince people that that animal that they invite into their home, which however they got there, that they have very different needs to what as humans we need. So I try to get people to see life from the animals, from the dog or the cat's perspective. And often, so it's about changing the environment, changing their interactions, and changing the expectations. Because often, as humans, we have huge expectations on dogs or cats, which is quite often unrealistic.
Yeah.
We kind of expect them to be these perfect beings who just happily live with us and don't...
And do as they're told.
Yeah, and just behave like in a human way, not in a dog or cat-like way. So it's about finding that balance of helping people just fall in love with their animals as a dog or as a cat, with their individual needs, because each one will be unique in what they need.
Definitely. I think, each animal has its own personality, and I think because I've had a dog when I was younger for long, they just have their own character, their own way of being, and their own preferences.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's why they're fascinating. And
And so your love for animals has also inspired you to become a vegan as well.
Yes.
You've been a vegan for how long now?
For 27 years.
27 years, wow.
Yeah. I was vegetarian. Thanks to my friends in Johannesburg. And then when I moved I think as soon as I moved to the UK, I just realized, if I really love animals, I need to stop at all. No, so I began vegetarian overnight, and I became vegan overnight, and it was just a huge relief. And it was, like Franz Kafka said, now that I don't eat you anymore, I can look you in the face. And I felt exactly that I felt a peace, that because I used to feel guilty but still do it, but so now there's no more guilt. I mean just the sadness that I'd not done it earlier, which I think most vegans is that the only regret is they didn't do it earlier. So I became vegan and just became more and in London I joined London Vegan Campaigns, and we started the vegan pledge, helping people go vegan for a month. But and there's now Veganuary, so hundreds of thousands of people do that. But I've loved all of the campaigning I've done. I still do school talks, so primary and secondary schools, on animal rights and veganism, that's my core being, just and I think I'm very lucky because I'm living a life where I'm lucky. I think I'm lucky that I have a passion, and I'm lucky that I can live it, and I'm lucky that I get to help companion animals live wherever I can, help them live a full life as much as I can possibly help them. Yeah.
Amazing, Vicky. And I just want to clarify a bit there what it actually means to be vegan, because I think veganism is a very hot trend recently, and I think it's important to distinguish what it means, because some people choose or call themselves vegans, but what they're actually doing is just eating a plant-based diet, and maybe doing it for health reasons, or because some pretty girl on Instagram told them that that's what they should do. So can you clarify that distinction for us a bit?
There is a difference. So as you said, plant-based eaters focus on diet, and they might be just not 100% strict, because it's about diet and it's not about the animals or the environment, or it's more about just it's a good thing to do. But when you go vegan, so vegan implies it's a lifestyle, and so not consuming any animal products or the produce of like the secretions, milk or dairy, honey, or anything like that, and not wearing any animal products, and as far as possible, and not kind of engaging in entertainment related to animals, and nothing that involves animal use or exploitation. But the vegan society, their definition is as far as practical and possible, because in our society, like we can't avoid. So I will buy where I can, only products that are not tested on animals. But like drugs, always tested on animals. And while I try and avoid drugs as much as I can, if my life was dependent on it, then I would have a drug. And so it's not possible to be 100% vegan. But I do the Vegan Society definition as far as practical and possible. I do it. Yeah. And that's the difference. And then so generally vegans who go vegan do it for the animals. So it's animals. So animal suffering first and foremost. But it naturally helps the environment. Naturally helps world hunger. Naturally, if you're a healthy vegan, then it helps your health. Even if you're junk vegan, the junk food vegan is still better for your health than a meat-based diet. But a lot of people who go vegan I don't know the percentages, but some people who go vegan for their health then find out about what happens to the animals and then go fully vegan. So that's happened. I've heard quite a few stories about that, and that's encouraging. So I don't mind I don't care what the reason people do go vegan or plant-based is, as long as they keep discovering what's really going on and then maintain it. So even if going for the environment, that's great as long as it continues.
Yeah. And how has it been for you to implement a vegan lifestyle? Was it hard? Is it more convenient now?
I've always found it easy because I've always cooked for myself. I've never so the food is there. The nuts, the seeds, the grains, the vegetables, and the fruits are always there. And what's easier is if you go out to restaurants. I mean, there's more awareness. So even like so even Pizza Express will have a vegan menu. So it's much easier for going out, and because of the awareness. And more restaurants will just try and include more as opposed to just one maybe slightly vegan option, or they'll have there's a much more choice. And for people who want to have replicas of fake meats, there's that, and that's fine. I think there's something for everybody who needs to have whatever they need. So it's and especially when you live in a city, it's really easy. And if you cook for yourself, then it's really easy wherever you are.
Yeah, home cooked food is the best.
Yeah.
Because then you know exactly what you're putting in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks. And just looking back on all the kind of challenges that you've shared, and I think I probably mentioned it already, but just your resilience and your continued just compassion, not just for humanity, but for animals. Like, where does that come from? Because, we've kind of heard this term quite a few times about like, oh, hurt people, like, or if someone is maybe, hurtful or disrespectful, it's like, oh, but they had a rough childhood, or they went through traumatic experiences, that's why they behave in a hurtful way to others. But then when I listen to you, like, you've had a rough childhood, you've experienced trauma, but yet you're like one of the most compassionate, caring people that I know. So I'm kind of very curious, like how does one person go in one direction and another person in a completely opposite direction?
And it's hard to know exactly why, but I mean I know since about 3 I've loved animals, and so maybe it comes from caring about some beings other than myself from tiny. Maybe it's that sense of empathy and compassion towards them, and maybe because that's consistent throughout my life, and I became much more aligned with it as I became vegetarian and vegan. I became more aligned with my empathy towards them.
So do you think it's actually something that a person is born with?
I think it's probably, and probably a combination of born with and having somebody in your life from a child, because I know that the studies that show that children can learn empathy like when they're little, and maybe because my sister, I know my sister was very attached to me when I was very little, so maybe I had that from her. I didn't have it from my mother, and my father wasn't really around, but I had it from her. So maybe I was lucky in that she loved me. So I'd love from her. And even though we were separated a lot of the time, different schools, different whatever, but I had that initial input from her. So probably a combination of a good experience with one family member and just this innate love of animals.
Yeah. And I think what you said before, just this kind of fight for justice for everyone.
Yeah.
Because when you feel that injustice, you want to make it right.
Exactly. Yeah, and so for me, it helped having that injustice towards me, because then I could empathize with what's happening to the people who worked for my mother. And
and then it kind of
and then it stayed, and when I went to school, I was called terms because I wasn't a racist. So and most of the kids were. So
what they made fun of you because you weren't racist.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was twisted.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And also use I started to write children's books also to share my love of to help I want children also to start thinking of all these issues in different ways through companion animal books and veganism and Mastama. So I'm in the process.
Yeah, I think it's a really great idea to do children's books because our minds are so impressionable and you want to present them with something positive.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, Vicky. We've got our hours up, or we could. There's just so many things there, so many different things to talk about and go even deeper with and understand more. But just to wrap up, to ask you my key questions. And so, looking back on all of the challenges that you've had, what do you think were the key practices that helped you to overcome those challenges and then attain success?
I think what's been consistent is that I've always looked for courses to help me to recover from certain things. So with my stammering, I looked for a course to recover, and I learned techniques. And if one didn't work, then maybe a few years later, I went on another one, and then I also started. What also helped me is singing in choirs, singing in an opera group, because singing with beautiful music with an orchestra is the most incredible high you can ever imagine. And meditation, where it's Tai Chi or sitting meditation or meditation with nature, that's really helped me as well. And with the ME, as I said, a course where I learned loads of techniques and also techniques that help me to challenge my thinking. So like through NLP techniques, challenging catastrophic thinking, just challenging my thoughts and helping to reframe my thoughts. That's so all of those things in nature, swimming in the sea, walking in the mountains. Those are all things which have helped me, and writing's helped me as well.
So like educating yourself, expressing yourself, having ways to ground yourself, get still. So powerful. And what do you value most, and how do you put it into practice?
I value most helping animals. And so I do that with my vegan lifestyle, with the school talks that I do, campaigning where I can, and writing books. Because the books introduce the core concepts. So speaking up, writing, and campaigning. And for injustice. And actually, Thomas Engel, he started the Massachusetts Royal Society for Protection of Animals in the 1800s, and people are said to him, why do you spend so much of your time and money helping animals when there's so much injustice to people? And he replied, I'm working at the roots. And that really resonated with me, because animals are the ones with the least voice, or the least voice that so helping them is a natural progression to helping the rest of society, because when you help the most vulnerable, then because they're the ones who need the most help, then society will naturally help everybody else.
Wow, that's really powerful. I just want to go slightly deeper in terms of values, because with that question, I want to understand like how to practice certain values. So I think would the value out of that be compassion, empathy?
So I value that. I value compassion and empathy beyond everything else, and justice, justice and freedom. For everyone, for every living being. Every living being has a need to be free. And to be able to live their lives according to the lives that they have, to live their lives according to their fullest potential. Every living being has that need.
Absolutely.
And that's
So if someone is like struggling with compassion and empathy, how would you, like, in those kind of small everyday ways, how can we tune into empathy and compassion?
I think each person, if they find whatever is meaningful to them, whatever appeals to them, whether it's helping a child, helping an older person, helping different groups of people, I think if they can just, and if they have no time or their life is too busy, just doing one little thing, starting off once a week, once a month, once a day, and it can take 2 minutes. And I think, and then the more, even just a smile at somebody, just compassion doesn't have to be like this big thing. It can be just little building blocks, and just think, and starting to read about or learn about other people, and their lives, and or whatever appeals to them, the planet, other people, children, animals, any aspect that everyone needs. Everyone's hurting and needing, and I think that can start the process of that. It feels. I mean, because compassion also helps yourself. And that's not the aim of it, but it naturally helps you feel. I think I'm sure everybody just feel better when you're helping others. There's a book, Stop Thinking and Start Living, about people with depression, and he says the minute you start helping others, you'll start to feel better. And so just helping in any way, however small, however short amount of time, writing a letter, sending a postcard, saying, I was thinking about you today. Just anything will, to get you thinking of somebody else, will help you, will help us. Yeah.
That's so powerful. I really love that you said that, because when you hear about like all the things happening in the world, it just seems so big, and it's like, oh my gosh, what can I do? And I love that. It's all about those small steps, small actions, small things, and then over time they'll just accumulate, and it'll just be a way of life, really.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think we've noticed it in lockdown. People playing music out of their streets, out of their homes for other people.
Yeah, if they like that kind of music, they'll be like, turn that off.
Oh, for sure. It's very personal taste.
Yeah, but the spirit of generosity was there.
The intention.
All right, this is amazing, Vicky. Thank you so much. I've loved having this conversation, and there's I wish we could go a bit deeper into everything, so we might have to have some separate conversations so we can tackle each aspect in more depth.
It's my biggest pleasure.
And yeah, if anybody would like to find out a bit more about you and what you do, where's the best place to find you?
I have a website, happydogsandcats.co.uk.
Okay.
And that's my animal behavior work.
Brilliant.
And that's a good place to start.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to include that link. Thank you so much, Vicky. This has been great.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy this podcast, please remember to subscribe. And if you think that this episode could benefit someone, please share it, and catch you next time.